Hello and welcome to the Kearney Math Show. Thank you all for tuning in today. On today's episode of the Kearney Math Show, we are going to be featuring multiplying decimals, and this is entry number 5. So before we get started, write your name on your paper and write entry number 5. Okay, so our learning goals for today's lesson is by the end of today, I want you to take what you learned in 6th grade of how to multiply decimals, and let's add some positives and some negatives. So first learning goal is knowing how to multiply positive and negative decimals. And our second learning goal is to solve word problems involving decimals. So before we jump to the new stuff, I want to take just a moment to refresh from our last mini lesson. I want you to take a moment, and right here I want you to write in your own words, how do you add and subtract positive and negative decimals? So what do we say about the decimal? What do the decimal have to be? And what do we do if the signs were the same? Or what do we do if the signs were different? So take a moment and write in your own words how to add and subtract positive and negative decimals. Okay, so now let's take a minute to refresh from our Unit 1. Okay, Unit 1 we talked about, instead of adding and subtracting, we also talked about multiplying. And we talked about how to multiply integers. And who in the world helped us when we were multiplying positive and negative integers? Dun, da, 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 have no fear, Integer Man is here. So we learned all about Integer Man. Remember Integer Man? He's really tired from all that math, so his eyes are negatives. He can smell math from a mile away, so his nose is a positive. And his cape reminds us that he only knows how to multiply and divide. Okay? And we learned that we can use Integer Man and know that a negative times a negative is a positive. A negative times a positive. Look what's left over is a negative. A positive times a negative is a negative. Okay, so we're going to use that today and help us know how to multiply positive and negative decimals. Okay, so again, we're not really learning anything new. We're taking what you learned in 6th grade about how to multiply decimals and putting that together with Integer Man and knowing how to multiply and divide positive and negative decimals. So I want you to consider the following example. Okay, here's our example we're going to look at. I want us to look at negative 4.98 times negative 0.2. Okay, negative 4.98 times negative 0.2. Okay, so our first thing is when we are multiplying, when we were adding and subtracting, the decimals had to line up. When you're multiplying, the decimals do not have to line up. Okay, so when we take our example and we set it up, we could do negative 4.98 times negative 0.2, and I don't have to line them up. And typically I take the one with the most digits and I put that one on top. Okay, so step 2, you are going to multiply just like you would multiply integers. Okay, so we're going to multiply just like we've always multiplied. Okay, so if we come down here to our problem, we have 8 times 2 is 16, carry my 1. 9 times 2 is 18, plus the 1 is 19. And then 4 times 2 is 8, plus the 1 is 9. Okay, and then we know that using our Integer Man, a negative times a negative, so a negative times a negative, what's left over, what do we not have circled, is a positive. So I know my answer is going to be positive. Okay, but we're not done yet. Step 3, right here. After we multiply, we're going to go back and we're going to count the number of decimal places in each factor. Okay, so we're going to go to each of the numbers we multiplied and we're going to count how many decimal places they have. So for example, 4.98, how many places after the decimal there? 2. And then how many places after the decimal in the second one? There's 1. Okay, so we're going to count them. Okay, third step. You're going to do what with that? What are you going to do after you count the decimal places? You take those two numbers and you find the sum of the number of decimal places in each factor. So we're going to add that up. So 2 plus 1 is 3. And then right here it says, then you're going to move that many decimal places to the left in the product or in your answer. So since I counted 3, I'm going to come over here on the end. My decimal goes on the end, and I'm going to move it over 1, 2, 3. So my answer is positive 0.996. Okay? And just to recap, how do we know it was positive? We used integer man. So we said a negative times a negative is a positive. Okay? So you see we used everything we learned in 6th grade and combined it with integer man. Okay? So just to recap, decimals did not have to line up. We multiplied normally. Then we counted how many decimal places. And we moved that many decimal places in our final answer. Okay? So I'm going to do one more practice with you. I want you to look on the side of your paper and I want you to find number 1. Okay? So number 1 is negative 6 times 0.1. So if we go back over to our notes, our step 1, what did our step 1 say? The decimals do not have to line up. So I'm going to say 0.1 just because that has more digits. I'm going to put that on top times negative 6. Okay? Then what do we say? Step 2, we go back and we multiply just like we would multiply integers. Okay? So we do 1 times 6 is 6. 6 times 0 is 0. And then it said count the number of decimal places in each factor. So how many decimal places were in this factor? 1. How many decimal places were in the second number? There weren't any. So then it said find the sum. So 1 plus 0 is 1. And then we're going to move that many decimal places to the left in our answer. So we're going to start here and we're going to move over 1 place. Okay? But we have forgotten something super mega important. If we're multiplying like we multiply integers, dun da da da, have no fear, integer man is here. So we have to remember our sign. So we do a negative times a positive. So point to the negative, point to the positive, and see what you have left over, and you have a negative. So my answer is negative 0.6. Okay? So let's recap. Do the decimal places need to line up when multiplying? No. Okay? When multiplying positive and negative integers, how do you know what your sign is or decimals? What do you use to help you? Integer man. And then how do you know where the decimal goes in your final answer? You're going to count how many decimal places behind each factor and add that up and move that number of places in your final answer to the left. Okay, so let's go back to our learning goals to make sure we got it. Step 1, I can multiply and divide positive and negative decimals. We've got it. We know we can use integer man. And then learning goal 2, you will do when you come to the station when we look at some word problems. All right, good job, guys. You can go ahead and try some of the practice until it's time to rotate, and we will be happy to answer any questions you have. So if you have any questions, take time to write those down now. All right, good luck, guys. Make me proud. Peace out, Rainbow Trout. Love you, mean it.